So, today we start our journey. In this series, we'll discuss about the basic concept of singing Western classical music and its psychological approach. So, pattern. So today we'll start from our first question, as well as we do with everyone. So, what is the basic concept of singing Western classical music? Please explain and make us aware about it.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through clearly?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds good.
everything's good?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing, I think one important idea that I want to communicate to all my friends in India is that when we talk about Western music and Western classical music and jazz, that these are very big fields, very big studies. So jazz is a newer form, and I'll let Kim talk about that. But when we talk about Western classical music, this art form goes back several thousand years. It's very old.
Okay.
And we have, since about the year 1000 AD, we have actually a very precise record of how this music developed because of the notation system that we use. Of course, it's not totally precise because the notation is oftentimes just a start. But the real nuances, the real finer points of the music have to be communicated orally from one person to another person, just like in Indian music, actually. So one thing sometimes I've heard my friends in India say, they say, well, Western music is all notation and everything comes from the paper. But that's not really true, actually. The paper is important, especially when we have large ensembles like symphony orchestra or wind ensemble or opera, because when you have 100 people, it's useful to have the notation because you can coordinate all these different ideas working together. And so in those situations, does tend to be much less improvisation, much less spontaneous music making. But in many other areas of Western music, there is more improvisation, more spontaneous music making, and the finer points of how the tradition is translated from the guru to the shishya, from teacher to student, is still done the way it is done in India. You have to take lessons, you have to apprentice, you have to play with senior musicians and learn from them. It's actually not much different from the Western to the Indian style. But going back to the point, Western music, if we're talking Western classical music, it's a very old tradition. And one thing about that is I think profoundly different from Indian music is that it changes dramatically over time. So, for example, if you listen to early medieval music from places, what is now present-day France or present-day Germany or Belgium, that music sounds very different than if you listen to music being composed and created right now. Very different. Different instruments, different melodies, different rhythms, different mindset, different concept about what music is and what it can be. Really different. And I think that's in some ways less true with Indian classical music. With Indian classical music, you have more of a continuous thread, which is a very beautiful thing. So we know Indian classical music is not static. Indian classical music also changes over time. But if you listen to Dhrupad being sung now, and then you go back 700 years, many things are very much the same, right? The thread is continuous, which is a very beautiful thing, actually, I think. And I think for audiences, it's very helpful, because when audiences go to an Indian classical music concert, of course, every artist is going to have their own voice, their own ideas. And we have the Gharana system. So each Gharana has its particular styles and particular flavors. But there's a connecting thread. So if you listen to Gundecha Brothers, and then you listen to Bhimsen Joshi, even though the styles are different, we're going Dhrupad to Khyal, different generation, there is still connecting threads. The structure of the rag will be the same. The use of the tampara is the same. The rhythmic cycles are the same. But the music's very different because the artists are different. They have their own ideas. And that's one of the beautiful things I think about Indian music. One of the most powerful things is that there's a common language that the audience can understand and appreciate. And even though the individual artists are different, that continuous thread helps communication of the art form. Western classical music is very different in that way. Very different, completely different, because in Western classical music, you could think of it as a series of revolutions in a way. The music continued to change, and especially since Beethoven's time. Beethoven was a very important figure in Western classical music because he really pushed the idea of the individual artist moving into new territory that no one had heard before. And if you listen to Beethoven's later works, which he was composing in like the 18 teens and 1820s, I believe he died in 1826. I hope I'm right about that. But his later works are very strange. They're very radical. They're almost like someone wrote them yesterday in New York City. They're kind of avant-garde music in some ways. And so he was really pushing this idea of experimental music. And that process accelerated through the 19th century, the 20th century, and now the 21st century. So in Western classical music, now the situation is that we have lots of threads. There is not really one continuous thread. So some people are making music in one way, and some people are making music in a very different way. And there's many, many different vocabularies, many different languages being spoken, many different instruments being played. It is, frankly, very chaotic. It's a lot of chaos, you could say, in Western classical music nowadays. My area, and there's so much Western classical music. I mean, it's a humongous field. No person can learn all of it. Impossible. You would need 10 lifetimes. So most people specialize in one particular area. Some people specialize in medieval music. Some people specialize in 19th century music. My specialty is modern music. So when I perform a lot of my own music that I've composed, or I perform music that other people composed for me. But it's mostly living composers, rather than composers who were alive 300-400 years ago. And so the piece I played for you, I actually titled it Saraswati. And in some ways, it's connected to the Dhrupad tradition. And in some ways, not at all. Personally, I don't think it's possible to really play legitimate raga music on the marimba. And the reason I don't think it's possible is because the instrument is out of tune. First of all, it's in what we call equal temperament, which is where all the shrutis are divided evenly. And it's not even a very good equal temperament because the bars are made of wood and they move around. They don't stay perfectly in tune.
Okay.
And the problem with equal temperament is that, equal temperament is very useful if you're moving around to different keys. So if you're going, let's use an Indian analogy. If you're singing Rag Saraswati and your shuddaj, your sa is C, in modern Western music on an equal tempered instrument, you could move to D or A sharp or F sharp. You can move around all over the place, and the scale basically sounds okay. But, lekin, it doesn't sound great. This is the problem. because the intervals are all split evenly. And what we know from Rag is that the intervals are not even. This was one of my Guruji's. Can you see? Yeah, you can see Chote Guruji in the background. Pandit Ramakant Gundechaji. So this was one of his great achievements in his life, is his incredible precision of pitch. Unbelievable. And of course, Mukund Bhai knows this very well, because he's, and Kim as well, because we've taken lessons from him. And he would often always show us where the notes should be and how they should be, and the notes move, right? We have these ideas of andalan.
Yes.
And you can't do andalan on the marimba. It's just a chunk of wood. It's fixed. Okay, so that's a little bit technical. Let me back out a little bit. So how then was this piece like raga, and how was it different? It was like raga in a more general sense. And what I mean by that is that for me, the experience of singing raga, of listening to raga, is a meditative experience. It's an experience of immersion, where your body becomes immersed in this beautiful sea of sound, this ocean of sound. And I tried with this piece, with my composing and my playing, to create that overall feeling of being immersed in this beautiful sound world. So in that way, I was very influenced by raga. Now, I also used the basic notes of the sargam, of the scale. So that was also influenced. But in many ways, it was not raga, because I kept moving the shadaj around. Sometimes it was C, sometimes D, sometimes A. I was also using noise. When I was using those big slap mallets, I was creating dissonant sounds on purpose as a way to create difference and interest. And I would never do that if I was singing Rag Saraswati as a Dhrupad performance. It's not part of the aesthetic, right? In Dhrupad, we avoid noise. We don't go after it. But in much modern Western music, we do go after it. We purposely create noise because we have this idea that the sound world, that all sounds can be musical if they're in the right context. So does that explain a little? It's such a vast field. We would need hours and hours, and I want to make sure.
We'll talk about it more. Then next question we'll do. I want to ask him about jazz music and what is the basic concept of singing jazz music. Can you please explain? Kim belongs to the gharana also. Like in India, we belongs to gharana, and Kim's father is also a very, very good musician. And so please, Kim, tell us about what is jazz music and basic concept of jazz music.
Right. I will certainly do my best. I really appreciate the fact that Payton clarified that, Western classical music is a vast, vast field of, of study, of information. And the same could actually be said also of jazz. It's also quite vast. I will also invite my good friend Nick to comment, because he, as a jazz musician for the last several lifetimes maybe, has a lot also to say about this topic. From, the concept of what is jazz, can be seen through a few different lenses. And maybe for the moment, just for the purposes of not talking about too many things at once, I'll just put an emphasis on the nature of it being an improvisational type of music. Ideally speaking, there is a lot of mobility, so that you set a structure, right? You set a structure, and you're constantly weaving in, out, and around that structure, or possibly destroying the structure to play into the free space of whatever the destruction allowed you, right? And, you know, and this is something that's done, you know, instrumentally, vocally, depending on your skill and your courage, right? So we could say. From a vocal standpoint, it's interesting because you're working with different elements. You're clearly working with sound, right? Melody, rhythm, but you're also working with vocabulary. You're also working with spoken language, right? And so that becomes another piece that you can choose to rely on or move away from, right? You know, it's interesting. I took a jazz vocal workshop 2 weekends ago, in which we talked a lot about this very dynamic, and that particular facilitator, you know, brought up the point that a lot of times in kind of more standard jazz circles, a vocalist is seen as a little bit superfluous sometimes, like as though the real music happens at the level of the instruments, and the singer is a type of adornment. There is this that happens in certain jazz circles, and yet we all agreed that many jazz instruments are in fact trying to sound like a voice, a human voice.
Yes,
right?
exactly. The same in Indian music also.
And you're like, no, people. You're trying to get here, you know, at this very universal instrument.
Yes.
Everybody, just about everybody, has a voice, right? You can speak, you can whether in tune or not. So that idea is actually quite strong, you know, that you know, many instruments are trying to replicate this very human, precious and intimate instrument that we all have, you know. So that becomes interesting then when you put that into like, oh, okay, how do I want to use this instrument? Am I going to focus on the poetry? Am I going to focus on the lyrics? Am I going to focus on tempo? Am I going to focus on deconstructing or constructing? There's a lot of different ways. Do you have something to say
about what is jazz?
Oh, yeah. You know,
It
you look like you might be having
no,
some
no,
cooking.
just
Okay.
resting. No, just resting. No, I was thinking of singer jokes.
Singer jokes, yeah. There's
telling you.
And I'm not sure, because now I feel like I've maybe forgotten the heart of your question, and I've wandered off a little bit. So my apologies.
No, I am clear about it, what you say. Just thank you for this answer. And the second question I wanted to ask you, you have learned Dhrupad, ek raga in Dhrupad style. So how do you differentiate the one raga in Dhrupad Indian music and jazz music? How do you differentiate? Is there any difference between, you feel?
To be honest, seen, I think in the widest possible lens, I don't differentiate. I don't think we need to, really. I mean, I think really at heart, I kind of can see ek rag kind of like a diamond, right? And different forms are just like the facets of the diamond. Does this make sense? So it, you know, so it just gets to shine, okay, in whatever approach you want to do. That's a pretty open view, but I feel like at the level of spirit and the level of heart, that's like the view, the real view. That's the most important view, right? So that we can also move away from divisions and factionalism sometimes, and really get to the heart of the matter, which is like there's more alike than there is dissimilar.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Thank you. Payton, So I want to ask you the same question. So how do you differentiate one raga? You have learned already many ragas from like Dhrupad style. So how do you differentiate one raga to Western music?
I agree with Kim. The basic mindset is not that different. Both forms of music demand a lot of focus and commitment, and it's a long process. It's not 1 year, 2 year. It's like 20 years, 30 years, a lifetime kind of commitment. So in that way, they're very similar. But the vocabularies are very different sometimes. The grammar is very different. Sometimes the practice techniques, my riyaz is different between the two of them.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Payton. So here you talk about the mindset. So we have the psychologist, Dr. Shreya Pahwa. She is very good in psychology. So I wanted to ask Shreya ji, please ask your question about related to mind and psychology.
Okay, so I'll take like few seconds to just say that it's an amazing thing. I feel so elated to be a part of this thing again, and listening to you, Payton and Kim. I mean, sir has been talking about you a lot, but I think listening to you was one step ahead of everything. So I was really looking forward to all of this. And I love when Payton, you were composing your music, you would when you were playing your composition, then the thing what you said in the end, that was striking me again and again, that music is in everything. And I could really relate to that specifically. And when Kim, I loved the lyrics, and when you talked about in jazz the spoken element, I loved what you were, singing. I loved the way the emotions were coming out in that form of music. It was really wonderful. I wanted to ask a question related to your spiritual, specifically when Payton, when you said that, the composition you've done, it's kind of an amalgamation of Dhrupad and your Western classical music. So I basically wanted to ask you that, what kind of difference do you see, specifically, experiential difference related to your psychological well-being or spirituality, anything before learning Dhrupad and after learning Dhrupad? How did that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. Very interesting question. So learning Dhrupad, especially from Gundecha brothers in the Dagarbani, definitely changed my life dramatically.
Okay.
For the better. For the better. Yeah. And I think the ways that it changed my life is a better alignment of my mind and my body.
Okay.
Because Dhrupad is Nad yoga.
Yeah.
Na?
True.
I mean, this is an idea that Badar Guruji and Chote Guruji and Akhilesh Guruji talk about over and over again. It is a form of Nad yoga. So when I'm singing Dhrupad 2 hours a day, sometimes 8 hours a day, that's like practicing yoga 2 hours a day or 8 hours a day. It's a very powerful way to align your mind and your body and your spirit. And I think my Western percussion playing is much better now. From singing Dhrupad.
Oh, okay.
But I think it works the other way around too. And this is something Chote Guruji and I, Pandit Ramakantji and I, we talked about a lot. Because, Chote Guruji, his mind was very, very modern in many ways.
True.
He was very rooted in tradition, no question. But his mind was like always looking ahead 100 years, 200
Progressive.
years. Yeah. And I think if he had not been a great Dhrupad singer, he might have been a great scientist, honestly. His mind worked that way, always questioning, never saying, oh, well, Panditji said this, so it must be true. Nay. He was always asking, okay, Panditji said this, I respect Panditji, but why? Why? This attitude is very Western in many ways, in terms of Western music. That's what I mean earlier, especially modern Western music it's a lot of asking questions. What happens if I do this? What happens if I try this? What happens if we mix this and this and this? And it's like a big science experiment. And a lot of times the results are very bad. I'll be totally honest. A lot of modern music is not very good. But it is good in the general sense of exploration. And so if someone comes to modern music, modern Western classical music, and they don't have a mindset for exploration, they will not enjoy it. I promise you, they will not enjoy it. But if they come with a mindset of, okay, let's see what's possible. What happens if we do this and this and this? Then the enjoyment starts.
Okay.
And that attitude, just to finish up, when I'm practicing Dhrupad, I take that kind of Western attitude to my Dhrupad. What happens if I try this and this and this? And I had the blessings from Guruji for that, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, that must be helping you to amalgamate both of them together. That's what I understand from what you told. Great. That's really nice. Thank you.
So the pattern I wanted to ask you, that same thing of what I felt in the classroom in Chote Guruji's many time, that he is really a scientist, and he researched about what sound is, the science of sound. And we usually use that technique on Dhrupad. When we sing Dhrupad, we follow the science also. The science is called frequency science. When we sing, we follow the Udata, Anudata, and Swarita. The upper one note, there is three nature of the note. In Western music, are you following the same, or there is something else you are following?
It depends. I mean, it depends on the instrument and the style. I can't give you one simple answer to that, because there are musicians in the West who are exploring shrutis, very much like Indian musicians are, with the same concept of udat, anudat, etc. But many musicians are not. It really depends. On this instrument, the marimba, I can't. It's impossible.
Yes. Equal temperament. The marimba is made by equal temperament. Because of that, it's not possible. In voice, are they using the same? Do you think that?
I'll let Kim answer.
I'm gonna say yes, but again, different vocabulary and a different maybe a different sensibility behind that. And I don't know if I know enough experientially to be able to really say more than that. I'm curious though. Can I ask you, because Nick plays a stringed instrument, with no frets, so you were able maybe to kind of, explore things.
On string instruments, you often hear the tuning is not equal tempered. In a string quartet, for example, or in many string quartets, I feel that the intervals are adjusted so that they are more low integer ratios, more pure. And in a choir, certainly we hear that. In popular music, we hear it. So I think in an intuitive way, I think that performers seek a more smooth harmony.
Okay. Thank you, Kim and Nicholas. The same. Another question. What I find in Ek Raga Dhrupad music, when we sing, we communicate the raga with Tanpura. Tanpura is the only way, only source of singing of Dhrupad music. And we feel the purity of sound through Tanpura, and we feel that harmony, proper harmony. We listen through hearing. So, is there any source of singing Western classical music? Are you following like you were communicating with any other instrument, or how does you communicate?
Right. As far as I know, no, there's nothing this like a tempura that just provides like a steady cushion on which you can do your thing, you know, could be piano, could be guitar, could be so many things that give you kind of like that ambient, or more stronger than an ambient bass with which to then communicate your singing upon. I can say, until I played with Nick, and our duo is always just bass and voice. I played with piano mostly. I don't play an instrument, but played with piano players, and it's beautiful. And it's another thing. One of the things I really treasure now playing in this duet setting is that there's actually less sonic information, that's less chordal information, right? Generally, Nick plays, not that many notes at the same time, put it that way, so that it opens up the field of what I'm able to explore and communicate, because I'm not held in as much by, well, the piano just played, and if I go, like there's no space for that, right? Unless I want to be outside of the realm. But if it's a little bit of a simpler structure, there's a lot more space to communicate different ideas melodically and sonically,
Yeah. Payton, what do you want to say about this, please?
I think in a general sense, in a lot of forms of Western music, and especially jazz, I'm curious if you agree with me, Kim, on this, but the tampura provides a way of creating samvad, but also bouncing off. I remember Chote Guruji always said that every note should either absorb into the tampura or bounce off of it. And so in other words, you're always engaging with the tampura.
Right.
But in jazz, we have, I used to be a jazz vibraphone player in an earlier life, so I remember this, but we have these chord progressions, harmonies that they cycle round and round and round. And when you're improvising with the chords, you can absorb into them in a way that's very consonant, but you can also bounce off of them, right? In the West, we use the phrase scale chord relation. So it's the relation to the melody to the harmony. And some jazz artists, the melodies absorb into the harmonies very, in a way that's very consonant, but other artists like to bounce off of them in ways that are sort of more dissonant. And then some artists kind of go between. That's my feeling. Do you agree, Kim? And so in that way, I feel like the chord progressions are like a kind of tampura in a general sense.
Yes, really well said. I don't even know. I don't think I can even elaborate on that any more than that. Then yes, in the sense that there are, there's like a steady force, right? And in music, we could say it's a tempura, or let's say a chordal structure, and either you can kind of go like this, or you can kind of whoa,
Okay, it's great. Thank you. And what we feel in Tanpura, we feel the purity of sound. There is continuity. That sound is going on. Maintain the continuity in Tanpura. And so Tanpura is pure sound. We believe that in Indian music. And in chord system, there is, I think that always chord is changing.
Yes.
According to the poetry, according to the composition, always the chord is changed. So, is there any continuity you feel in between? No.
It's not the same. The way the tempura is just like that is your foundation. That's your cushion. No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that it's only recently that in Western music we have this concept of a timelessness, where you have a music that is less linear, that is more an entity that doesn't need to go somewhere. I think this is something that maybe has only existed since the 70s. Western music, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hear it more and more in a mainstream context, though. I don't know what this means.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some of that is from the Indian influence. I suspect. I mean, going back to the 60s when John Coltrane, for example, first encountered Indian music, and it really influenced his language and vocabulary. And then artists in the West like Lamont Young and Terry Riley, who studied with Pandit Prannath. Yeah, we have a genre in the West, we call it minimalism. We also have ambient music, and I think it's fair to say some of those things were influenced by Indian music.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Payton. And I feel what I feel now. We want to hear Kim again. So the talk will be more entertaining and more peaceful. So please, Kim, if you can sing little more, then we can start again our talking.
Yes, of course, and people are definitely enjoying. I'm going very much watching the comments of the people. There are certain questions also which we will definitely take after Kim's performance, this short performance which she is going to have now. So let's have some musical notes from the one and only Kim. And Nicholas, may I request you to please come a little bit louder, closer to the device, so that we will get the sound of your bass a little bit in a better manner. Yeah. Yes.
Better?
Yeah. You are very much visible, and I hope the sound will be audible this time in a better manner. Carry on.
There are bags that need unpacking. There are things I need to let go. It's quite time to lighten the load. Yes, there are bags that need unpacking. Lines to be unblurred, heavier than any galaxy is the weight of stories heard. And it's not that's not true. The weight of believing them is what cripples and burdens you. And it's not that's not true. The weight of believing them is what cripples and burdens you. The stories I refer to, the mortar between the bricks, the facts are the facts that stack, but what makes them stick? A child's mind reasons life's wise and hollows alone. Blaming herself, shaming herself, become pockets full of stone. And it's just that's what's true. The weight of believing them is what cripples and burdens you. And it's just that that's what's true. The weight of believing them is what cripples and drowns you. She gets older, yeah. It may take years and decades to see. She can empty her pockets and choose to be free. No, it's not that easy. Pain burns so deeply. The fire of that scarlet letter won't let me sleep. And it's just that, that's what's true. The weight of believing them is what cripples and drowns you. It's just that, that's what's true. The weight of believing them is what cripples and burdens you. There are bags that need unpacking. There are things I need to let go. Now is the time to lighten the load, lighten the load, lighten the load. If letting go means simply letting it be, I put down my burdens and I sing myself free. Sleepless eyes wide open to all I have been. Soft palms wide open, I inhabit my own skin. I'm older now, a new young crone. I unblur the lines and choose what is my own. I'm older now, a new young crone. I unblur the lines and choose what is mine. Oh.
Thank you so much, Kim. What a beautiful voice and energy and the mead, we call mead, the continuity of the sur. Wow. Kya baat hai?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
And Nicholas, there is a wonderful comment on Facebook Live that Nicholas, your finger looks like kissing and smooching those strings, loving the bass. And there are many more wonderful appreciations for all of you guys. And there is a question from Mrs. Nupur Rao from India. She's asking, can learning Indian classical music help in singing Western classical music?
Absolutely. That is why I continue my practices, right? It's interesting. In jazz, I feel I have not necessarily been the strongest improviser. And yet, I feel that the more that I have studied Dhrupad, my voice is stabilized in a very different way. And I really hear things very differently. So my capacity to improvise has expanded a lot, through my studies, and so that's a big reason why I continue.
So, thank you, Kim. Thank you so much. And now, Shreya ji, your turn. Please ask the psychological impact, whatever you think.
Okay, no, I first want to ask him something not related to psychology, but I really wanted to ask, what made you first think about learning Dhrupad?
I think it was an interesting story. It was interesting for me. You know, I'm a hatha yoga teacher. That is my day job, we could say, and
Okay.
and I've been singing since I was very young. You know, and people would always say to me, "Oh, you know, you must really like kirtan music, you know, because it's all that singing." And I was just like, not so much. Not really a kirtan person. And a good friend of mine, Ina, who we know, Ina Phillip, she would come to my yoga classes sometimes, and she had come from her first trip to India, and she led a very very small workshop in which she introduced Karaj and sa practice. Just those two things. We did it for an hour and a half, and I was like, yes, this is what makes sense to me. Yes. And then literally right after that, I began Karaj every morning. I still hadn't met Guruji. I didn't know anything. I didn't have a tempura or I tempura, none of that. I had a Tibetan bowl, and I just would go, you know. And I said,
Okay. Great. So now, when you say that you were like that aha moment you had that this is what I want to do. So then I would like to ask you, what kind of an impact has it had on you, the learning of Dhrupad?
Also, I would say a substantial impact. To some extent,
Excuse me, Kim, a little bit louder.
louder. Okay, I'll just.
Yeah. You may be a little bit closer. Thank you.
Okay.
Carry on.
What I would say, I've been a student of hatha yoga practices since my late teens, and I've also been singing since I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I saw these two things as being different. I had my hatha yoga practice in which I also invested and received from it a certain spiritual nourishment. And I feel like when I was introduced to Dhrupad, I was like, there it is.
Put together.
It's already in one practice, and it's already something I do. Like I have already always been singing, and certainly, especially as a young person, in my heart, I was always singing to God as I understood God, but I never found in Western music a place where that understanding is actually woven right into the teachings and woven right into how it is that you make and feel and express those sounds. And that for me is like,
wow, that's something really, really enlightening, I would say, for probably everyone who's watching this. And did you also find any kind of a difference in the way you have been taught jazz and the way you have been taught Dhrupad? And like, if you can figure out what is the difference and what is the best out of both the things, what you think, you can mention here.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I haven't studied jazz formally.
Okay.
I never went to school for this. I don't know how to read music. I don't know these things. So
that's the traditional way.
And I was going to say, this is a traditional way of doing it. So in fact, this is another reason why Dhrupad makes sense to me, because it's how I've learned anything I've ever learned. In Dhrupad, sweetly, I get to actually relate to a person, and I have classes with a person, or there's a teacher. Whereas, let's say in jazz, I've learned through listening to mentors in records, Billie Holiday, let's say, or Sarah Vaughan, or musicians in this way, listening, learning, and learning from kind of the vastness of like, oh, okay, so this is what the medium is about. This is what the medium does. This is what the tonalities that seem prevalent in this kind of music, and so, the idea that there's a teacher and a student, and you really are learning through listening.
True.
That's so much music, and definitely like Black American music is strongly this way. And
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Carry on, Shreya ji, and ask
Okay.
same question. If Payton, do you want to say something about
Yeah,
this question?
I would like to even ask Mr. Payton, you that what are the different ways you learn Western music, and you learn Dhrupad, so the Guru Shishya Parampara here specifically. So what is the best out of the two? In both, I'm sure both have their own bests, right? So I would like you to put them together and let me know, like, what would you like to say on this particular thing?
Well, okay, I'll try to be fast. However, it's a complex question, really, because it connects to a lot of cultural differences.
Absolutely.
And it's very difficult to say one thing is better than another, even in certain areas, without potentially offending people, right? So yeah. I just want to say that up front. But in terms of Western classical music, there are some differences. And part of it is that for example, when I was in music conservatory in university, I would have a lesson with my teacher one time a week for 1 hour. Oh. Sometimes he would go longer, 1.5, but only once a week. It's very different because when you're at Gurukul, you see Gurujis every day. Sometimes when I see Guruji, the lesson is only 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He just gives me one little bit, and then the next day we go forward. But the reason in the Western system you only have a lesson once a week is because you're spending so much time in music ensembles. This is a very important part of Western music. So my friends in India, when I was at Gurukul, I was there 9 months, and I was on Fulbright, and I was there as a student, but I was also teaching Western music to my Guru Bhais and Guru Bahins. And one question they asked me, they said, well, how is music school in America different from music school in India? And I said, and I asked Gurujis about this, and they supported me. Gurujis have said, music school in India is okay, but it's not the main thing. The main thing, if you're really serious about Dhrupad or Khayal and you really want to become a top performing artist, you have to go through Guru Shishya Parampara tradition.
Yeah.
No question. You cannot just go to college. It will not work. But in America, that's not true. And I would say Europe and Canada, Australia, Japan, most of the countries that focus on Western music, because we have our ensembles. And the ensembles are a big part of what we do. And so you have to go to a good school. That's why getting into a school like Juilliard or Eastman or McGill, these are very competitive schools, because once you're there, you get to play with other people who are really good. And that's really exciting. And so that is one big difference, because the ensemble is a bigger part of our thinking, right? But in terms of better or worse, or which side has strengths, I mean, one benefit of the Guru Shishya tradition, if you're with the Guru every day, is that it's very, very thorough, especially if you have great teachers like Gundecha brothers, right? They give you one little bit at a time, and you progress very perfectly, very steady.
Absolutely.
The problem in the Western system is if you only have a lesson once a week, sometimes you can go off. You can go the wrong direction, and then they have to correct you and bring you back. So you end up wasting some time. Yeah. On the other hand, I found the Western system sometimes is more sometimes it's more organized, frankly. Because because we have this notation tradition, and that can actually be useful sometimes. Sometimes it's not good because it closes your ears. You're thinking too much with your eyes. But sometimes it's very good because things are laid out in a very clear, very consistent way from beginning to end, and it's a little more systematic in that way. So But I don't know. I'm reluctant to go into this topic because we would need more time, and I don't want to say something that I would later regret because it's so complex. It's really complex.
Thank you.
Thank you, Payton. So that's great that you explained so well. My another question I wanted to ask you, just to be clear about it. I don't know actually what Western music is. So you explained in Gurukul that time. It was nice that I attend some of your lecture. It was really nice. I wanted to ask this: if we sing one raga, there is much less poetry and much on alap we do, or we move on freestyle. There is nothing fixed, nothing pre-planned. We do instant on the stage, or when we are doing sadhana at the time, we instant do the things. So is Western music is poetry based, or there is something else like this freestyle you are moving?
Kim, do you want to start?
No, go ahead. You first, brother.
Well, the thing is, Mukund, I must respectfully disagree with you a little on this point because, in fact, when we perform Dhrupad, you're correct. We are improvising, but there is a lot of things that we know we're going to do. We don't know exactly when, and we don't know exactly how, but we still have a framework. So we know if we're singing Rag Bimpalasi, we're not going to go sa re ga. We're not going to do that, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's not in the rag. We do know if we're singing alap, we'll probably start at our middle, our madhya shadaj, and work down into our kadaj range, and then gradually work all the way up to the high shadaj. And we know that certain tones will receive more emphasis and more time. We know certain phrases we're going to use. We know the svarastan, we know the shrutis, we know the means. And then we know the same process for jor, for jala. And when we get to the bandish, there's actually a fairly normal way to develop upaj, right? We sing the astai, we sing the antara, then we develop the upaj, then we come back and we sing the astai again. So in fact, when people sing Indian classical music, there are a lot of things that are actually pretty fixed. They're movable, but we know they're going to happen.
Actually,
right?
that depend on the person who take how they take this music. It depend on their sadhana. It's if I say about myself, I never fixed anything. I never written anything. I just know that raga is that note is specific note that's going straight by nisa gama pa nisa like bimpalasi and sanitapam magarisa. I just learned this. This is the way. I have to follow this way. So yes, absolutely, you are right. There is that depend on the person how they did their practice. Like Guruji never written. They followed the poetry in the end. Actually, my question is Western music is poetry based or not? Just I wanted to know that.
I think it depends. Depends on the period of time and the artist.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think, Kim?
I would agree with that. That it really depends, and kind of what field of Western classical music you're playing in, right? Is it more poetry based or not? Certainly, as a vocalist, I'm gonna squeeze all those words right in there, But also again with the hopefully taking the liberty to move away from the words or break the words down in some way as part of the improvisation.
Thank you, Kim and Payton. We have many questions from outside, from Facebook, many people asking many questions. So I think now we have time to, if you have time, then we can discuss more, but I think it's enough to know the basic rules of Western classical music in Ek Raga, based on Ek Raga. And I wanted to ask Shreya ji, do you want to ask something more question?
Yeah, I have a question generally that what's the role of familiarity that plays in enjoyment of the music? Like if supposedly, you practice or probably you heard that music again, before, does that actually increase the kind of enjoyment, or it's it's different for like everyone? What would you like to say about that? I would like to hear both the viewpoints.
Would you just clarify the question again? I want to be sure that I really understand.
Okay. So I wanted to ask that what's the role of familiarity with the particular kind of music, or, what you're listening to, or what you are, practicing, or what you are hearing. So what's the role of familiarity that plays in our enjoyment to a particular music?
Oh, beautiful question. If I understand it, so the rule of familiarity of the musician with the piece, or with the audience with the piece? The audience.
It could be, it could be anyways, like how you want to interpret it, probably. Obviously, I understand that it could be different for the audience and it could be different for the musician. So if I really had to ask you as a musician, what would be the role of familiarity? Would you enjoy it more, or you would like, probably it would have a...
I can say personally, the longer I sing a song, 5 months, 6 months, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, the more I'm like, the more I get out of it, the more I can put into it, the more I have a rich exchange with that piece of music, the more I feel I can take it different places, or I can allow it to take me different places. I know that there are some folks who don't like to stay with particular compositions for very long. Like, they're much more like, hey, there's like, the world is so vast and big. Why stick with one? Let's keep going. We're doing it. And I think it really comes down to like a bit of a personal value system, in the sense of, you can view things on the level of range, like how far do you want to go in terms of range, and then, or how deep do you want to go in terms of capacity, right?
Okay.
So in terms of how much exploration do you want to do
in that particular area? Okay.
This way or this way?
Okay.
So it may be a choice about that, like range versus capacity, and that can be quite personal. I'm sure different styles maybe have different value systems.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Thank you. Payton, what would you like to say about this?
I think for Western classical music, for older styles like high Renaissance, classical romantic, I think familiarity does help enjoyment.
Okay.
Yeah, because it helps you understand the language, the vocabulary, right? But I think for modern music, it's not familiarity, because that's impossible, because every piece is sounding different. They're, like I said earlier, it's like radically different sound worlds, radically different vocabularies. I think in that case, it's more mindset that improves enjoyment. If you go in with the mindset of hearing new things you've never heard before and you want that experience, you'll have a good experience. But if you go in thinking music has to sound like this or that, you probably won't have a good experience.
Okay. That's like really nice. Thank you. That's a good point.
Thank you, Payton. And I would like to, we would like to listen you once again. If you want to play something again, marimba, it will be very nice for all the viewers in Facebook, and for personally for me, it is sound really incredible. And I feel that vibration of marimba also. I know there is a fixed note, but it's not about the notes only. Music is not only notes. There is a feeling, there is a vibration inside. So we have to feel that, we have to enjoy that. And I personally enjoyed a lot. So I'd like if you play something again, and it will be nice. Something.
Sure. लेकिन मुझको 1 minute चाहिए. I have to change the microphone.
Okay, sure.
So
yeah,
I'm just going to turn myself off or stop my video and mute. So maybe you can have more conversation.
Yes, sure.
1 या 2 minute.
Sure. So we come back to Kim again. So Kim, what do you want to say about Dhrupad? Especially here, I started a new organization. I started work in a city where people don't know what Dhrupad is, what Khayal means. Very few people know, not everyone. There is also very few people, they know very well what Dhrupad is, and they like to listen Dhrupad many times. And but if I say, not much people know about Dhrupad, and they don't know about Khayal. We have a music here called Odyssey music that's based on this region only, on my state only. Yeah. Okay. And so what do you want to say about Dhrupad or about this foundation?
Well,
few words, if you say.
Well, first off, I have to say, like, bravo for, going to someplace new and beginning, and founding such a fantastic program, of education, and really kind of spreading out or disseminating this awareness of this beautiful and ancient practice of music,
Yeah.
It's so yes, and I wish you like every blessing and all courage and luck and everything. I'm sure you have it not only from Guruji's and all of your friends, but kind of from the universe in general. It's going, yeah, go.
Thank you so much. It's energy. It's energy. The word is energy, I feel. And that word make me do much more and do again and again. I don't stop. This give me energy. And thank you so much for this beautiful word you say. Guruji always, Guruji dreamed about this state, and he said that you start work there and make aware people what music is actually. Not only Dhrupad, it's not about Dhrupad. It's about the music.
Right, so, and that's why you call it. It's about the music.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's totally fantastic. Yes.
Thank you. I think that Payton is ready to play. So we go back to Payton again. So are you ready, Payton?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, let me just play a few notes. Please tell me if it's distorting or if it's okay.
Yeah, it sounds okay. Good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, I'll play a short. I'm going to improvise for you, and I'm going to start with something. I'm going to start with something that's related to Rag Malkans, and then I'm going to go somewhere else completely.
Okay.
So
great.
Maybe I will start more firmly in India, and then I will go travel to America.
Great. Carry on. Wow. क्या बात क्या
Wonderful.
बात
Very nice. We
Bravo.
enjoyed it a lot. And the sound is still echoing
क्या बात
in my
it's really
mind.
nice, really nice. Thank you so much, Payton. Please come to your position and we'll talk about little, then we'll finish. So I'll request again to Kim. So Kim, can you please sing something again? And would like to maybe Kim left maybe.
I think there is some network problem, and Kim is
Yes.
trying to join us.
Wow, you sound so natural. This sound is so natural, Payton. Wow, क्या बात है.
Thank you.
And you use the chromatic notes again in some way somewhere, and
I
it
left
was
the
sounds
raga.
yeah, it sounds nice,
I took
beautiful.
Air India to America.
Wow, क्या बात है. Thank you. And Kim, I would like to request you again, please sing something for our audience, for our viewers. And you sound always, I like your singing. You sound so much Dhrupad. Again, Dhrupad, so much music. You are in music, but influence of Dhrupad is there. I feel personally very much. So please sing something again. I think your sound is mute. Please unmute. You are not audible.
Yes. Yeah, no, there was I made a mistake. I hit the wrong button. Okay. We'll do a song that we also composed that comes out of the kind of Black American tradition of blues music. Okay.
I like blues. Yeah.
And this is a little bit maybe why Chatur Guruji gave me Shruti Vardhani to learn.
Yes. Also, we had some classes of Shruti Vardhani, na?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the sound okay? Should we move closer?
Yes,
It's
little
okay.
closer will be nice if he can.
Yeah, we can also. So
You can sit, Kim. You can sit in front of him. Then you will sound good, maybe. Yeah. Or you want to stand? You want to sing? If,
then I'm only ahead.
Maybe I'm too loud.
I'm a genuflected mama. I'm on my knees most all the time. I'm a genuflected mama. I'm on my knees most most all the time. On my bended knees, I kneel, pray, and cry. Was it romance that broke me? I'm not even broke. Was it a man that broke me, Lord? And I'm not even broke. Was living long tender years that made my heart fall open. I've lived through famine, genocide, and World War. I've lived through famine, genocide, and World War. And it breaks my heart for all of the victims and war. Why does life have to be this way? Why can't we all get along? Why can't life be this hard? Why can't we all just get along? The whole of the kind of loving that exists beyond right and wrong. From down on bended knee, let me tell you what I know. From down on bended knee, let me tell you what I know. No one ever gets out alive when it's time. We all got to go. Let's make that exit now in a symbolic kind of way. Let's die to old beliefs now in a symbolic kind of way. You pray to what you know is love. You start a brand new day. Underneath, below, what we know is love. There's a whole new place. Beyond, below, what we know is love. There's a whole new place. It's tender, it's brave, it's humble. In every kind of way.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Mukund sir, your mic is mute.
Mukund, yeah, we don't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I would like to hearing you more. If you sing all the night, I can hear you. You sound so beautiful, so amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us and make this series possible. And I'd like to thank Payton again. And Payton, I want to say, just I started in this organization in Odisha, and it's quite difficult here to work because the people, whatever I talk with Kim, it's quite difficult to start work in a new place where people do not know about Dhrupad, many people, and they do not know about the Western classical music. Also, they do not know about what Indian classical music is actually. So because of that, I'm organizing this series. So what do you want to say to the people of Odisha and India about this music, about Dhrupad, about this concept?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank, first of all, I want to say that the people in your area are lucky to have you, Mukund. Very, very lucky to have you. I've known you for a long time, and you've always been so serious and dedicated to your art form, and you have a beautiful heart and a beautiful mind, and so I think the people there are very lucky to have you. And it's been a real pleasure meeting your colleagues with Ek Rag, and this is a wonderful initiative. I hope your viewers enjoyed my music and Kim and Nicholas's music today. And the nice thing about the internet is if you want to learn more about Western music, you can just go to YouTube and start exploring. You know, it's the best way to learn about it is just to listen to it. And you may find some you really like, some you don't like, but you just have to put some time into finding things. And if anyone ever has questions and they want recommendation or anything on specific recordings, you can just send me a message on Facebook, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can. But thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Payton. And Kim, in last word, what do you want to say? Anything, if you want to say and share anything, please.
Yes, this has really been quite a fantastic discussion to be a part of, and I really so appreciate the depth of the questions, you know, the curiosity behind the curiosity, the energy of that, and kind of seeing, yeah, how do these forms of music relate to one another? You know, the questions are really fantastic. I feel like we could all write a thesis, a college thesis on one question alone. So to touch on these questions, you know, in an hour and a half or 2 hour conversation feels like, oh wait, we can come back next week. We just keep going.
Yes.
So yes, yeah, very fantastic. Thank you so much. And anything you want to say?
Thank you so much, Nicholas. And Nicholas, especially thanks to you. It was little late to make your invitation and to publish it. And but we are really, really thankful to you for your precious time with us. And what do you want to say about anything, please?
I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank you all. I feel very honored to have been invited to take part in this very special meeting that covers half of the world. And it was a great pleasure for me. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you. I come back to Vinodji again. Please, Vinodji, express the gratitude to everyone, and we'll finish.
Yes, Mukundji, it's been fabulous. Last 1.5 hours, we have been galloping into the world of music, touching various genres, and it was really a very scholarly and a very informative interactive session for all of us individually, and of course for all the viewers who have joined us and who will join us, because this episode will be very much available on the Facebook page of Dhrupad Music Foundation. So with this, we come to an end of series 4 of Ek Rag, but with this promise that we will be right back on the next Wednesday with series 5 of Ek Rag, with different genre, with an intention of exploring the nuances of some new genre from the psychological approach, psychological point of view. So with this, once again, thanks to all of you, to all the panelists and to all the viewers who have joined us across the world. And please take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Payton. Bye, Nicholas. Bye, Kim. It was wonderful interacting with you. Bye-bye.